This is my brother's 18-foot cargo trailer in his future tiny home. And what's really cool about this is he's making it all with zero building experience, really. He's really hitting this thing head on and learning as he goes. Something else he doesn't have a lot of is tools. Now, we've been getting a lot of work done with just 2 circular saws and making a couple of jigs. This one will temporarily substitute as I guess like a chop saw, where you can put a piece of wood here and cut 90 degrees. Smaller stuff. It's been doing the job just fine. And this circular saw I've mounted to a piece of plywood underneath to make a makeshift table saw. Kind of dangerous, wouldn't recommend it if you don't know what you're doing or don't have that much experience. But just a regular circular saw mounted under here. This is great for ripping small stuff down, but it's really not that great for cutting larger panels of plywood. To help my brother make accurate and easy cuts with a circular saw on larger panels of sheet goods, I'm going to use this particular piece of plywood to make a couple guide tracks for one of his circular saws. There's only 2 parts to a circular saw track: the fence that the saw will reference up against, and then the base that the saw will ride on top of. Now, we have to make sure that going forward we always use the factory edge right here to reference off of, so everything is nice and perfectly straight. This is a 3-inch wide piece that was cut off of this side, so this particular cut right here and right here is not exactly perfectly straight because I just eyeballed it. This right here is the factory edge, so it is perfectly straight. So this is the fence we're going to use. We still need a base. This line right here to the corner is about 9.5 inches wide, and what that allows is extra room to cut a zero clearance for that particular saw, and then about 1 inch or so on this side for clamps to clamp it down to your workpiece. So in order to cut exactly at this line and make a nice absolutely straight cut, I'm going to use this, but I'm going to clamp it down on my second line that I made, and this distance right here and here is equal to the distance from the blade to the left side of the base. So if I line it up on this mark over here and clamp it down, do the same thing on the other side, then I run the circular saw up against this fence and we'll create an exactly perfectly straight line from this point to the matching point on the other side of the plywood. I've got this board clamped down to give me a nice straight cut, but because this is just clamped on the edges and it's only a 3-inch wide piece of plywood, I was getting some flex this way when I pushed against it with my finger. So to stop that real quick, right in the middle of the plywood, I've just clamped a scrap piece of wood right here to stop this from flexing that way. With the blade resting up against an edge of the plywood, I can tell that from the opposite side of the base to the blade is about 3 3/4 of an inch. So over here on the track, I need to secure this fence piece to the base, and I want it to be a little bit further than that same distance so that I can cut it off at zero clearance. So as long as I'm about 4 inches or so, I can go ahead and glue and nail this down. With the fence glued to the base, now I can use the circular saw with its base resting up against the fence to cut an absolutely perfect zero clearance line for this particular circular saw. So with that cut made, the distance from this edge to this fence right here is the exact distance from the side of the circular saw to the blade. So if I need to make a perfectly straight cut on this point all the way down, I can just line up the guide with my mark, clamp it down, and make my cut. An 8-foot track is incredibly handy for cutting down bigger sheet goods, but sometimes 8 feet is just way too long for your needs. So I made 2 that were 8 feet long, and I cut the second one into a 5-foot and a 3-foot section. So now he's got 3 different tracks to use depending on whatever size material he's working with. Like I said, this is my brother's future tiny house. He's going to be documenting the entire process along the way, and hopefully he'll be able to use some of these tracks to make the building process a little bit easier as he goes. If you're interested in following this build, he just started adding to it recently. I'll leave a link in the description below to his channel, and you can follow along if you're into that sort of thing. Thanks for watching, folks, and have a great day.